What's up, everybody? My name is Manny. This is my first video on my channel that I am dedicating to strictly my personal experience as I try to move from the US to Nicaragua over the course of a few years, because I have a plan in place to make my quote-unquote early retirement possible. And a lot of that has to do with flying by the seat of the pants, So a few things are in my advantage, a few things are not. So hopefully this is somewhat entertaining to people, and also provide some information to anybody who wants to make the leap. A little background on me. So I was born in Puerto Rico, so I am Puerto Rican, which is a U.S. citizen for those people who may still be on the fence of whether they were sure or not. You're a U.S. citizen. There's absolutely no difference. So around age 3, went from Puerto Rico to Philadelphia. Was in Philadelphia most of my adult life. Around 32 years old, I went to Florida for 5 or 6 years, roughly. After I felt my time in Florida was done, I moved back to the Philadelphia area, where I got into my next relationship, and it happened to be with a Nicaraguan woman, right? And it was fine for a while. We were together for about 3 years. As time passed, it didn't work out, and then it ended up with her going back to Nicaragua. That's where my interest in the country came from. So after 3 years, back in September, I flew out of the country for the first time. I've never left the country. I had to get my passport for the first time, which ended up being a lot more money than I thought it was going to be. It was very seamless though. And I left the country for the first time. So the way I was introduced to Nicaragua was, and when I ended up back in the Philadelphia area, I met a Nicaraguan woman. First person I ever met or dated that was out of the country, or not an American citizen. And through that experience, I was able to learn and become interested in Nicaragua, eventually wanting to move there. I have never left the country ever, and it was a little daunting, and I've considered it in the past, just in sitting around bored thinking about different things to do. I have no children of my own, so that allows me to be flexible. That's why I've moved all over the country as it is. But moving out of the country was a big step. If you don't know anyone in a new country and you're not loaded, I'm just a regular guy with a regular job, right? It's something that you normally can't really consider unless you have at the very least someone local in the country you're going to. So after me and that person split up and we went our separate ways, I decided I wanted to go through with moving there anyways. Even though our relationship didn't work out, I learned enough about the country and its people that made me want to still try to do it. I like the mentality and culture of the women there and most people there. Reminds me of old school Puerto Rico. I'm 41 and I have no children. So that facilitated me the ability to look into moving abroad. But after stepping foot in Nicaragua in September, I decided that's what I wanted to see it firsthand before I committed to the idea. And because I don't have any local responsibilities here, like children or family or whatever, I decided to go through with trying to move to Nicaragua. So naturally, the first thing I started doing was looking up some of the local costs, researching all the things like cost of living, what does a house cost, what are you willing to sacrifice, what can't you sacrifice, is it going to be a drastic change? So I have a unique perspective that a lot of people don't have. Being born in Puerto Rico and going there twice throughout my adult life, just visiting twice, and my family and family photos and videos and conversations and anecdotes, stories and all that, I have an idea of living in a place like Nicaragua. So that gave me two advantages. One, I speak fluent Spanish. I'm Puerto Rican, so hablo español perfectamente. Secondly, I have memories, even when I visited, and faint memories from when I was a toddler, of some experiences that I took for granted, which I now kind of enjoyed. As a kid, grew up in Philly, so I enjoyed the city life. And I never thought I'd find any interest in moving to Puerto Rico or any place like that, anywhere, period. Just living in the city or living in another city. I moved to the Tampa area, then I lived in the Buffalo area where I am now. As I've gotten older and I've had cars and I've had a couple houses and things like that, I've enjoyed a lot of my hobbies without restriction. So now just feel like I've come to the point where I want a different kind of experience. I guess that's what you call, getting old, right? It's the same things don't bring you the same joy, or in a different way. I am currently with a new Nicaraguan girlfriend. She has never left Nicaragua, and I met her when I was down there. You know, we hit it off, and we've been connected ever since. What I mean about wanting to do something new is that when I was a kid, I'm like, I can't live in the town that my family's from, which is Jayuya, because it's in the mountains, and then there's no quarter-mile track. 'Cause I'm a car guy and a drag race guy, you know. I'm like, oh, and I can't ride my car because there's a lot of potholes, and I'm gonna, you know, just things that are to the tune of my youth, right? So my new goal is to make this transition into. I even sold my car to be as lean as possible to save money to go. Prior to going there, I made some contacts through Facebook, which is something that's a little controversial, and I'll get into that in a second, where I was able to find a house for rent. Now, I started researching through other YouTubers and Instagram and Facebook and things like that, through the contacts I made through my last relationship, which were Nicaraguan, and through all the online research and things I was able to compile. Now, there's a lot of good resources out there for people trying to move. Like, there's a gentleman by the name of Scott Miller who has a page. He does something similar to what I'm doing, but way more in depth. His videos are long and in depth, and sometimes a little long-winded, but they have a lot of information and detailed information. He gives his free time that he doesn't have to do, because he does have a business he runs in Nicaragua, and he tries to do much more structured version of this than I'm doing. So through him, I learned some things and some warnings, and then I started following a page called Immense Coffee. You guys should follow that page. That's a gentleman and his family. He biked down from California, left his job. He's Nicaraguan, his wife's American, and they've been building a farmstead in a coffee land in Matagalpa, North Nicaragua. And even though I've never met this guy, I watch all his videos, and through him and Scott Miller, I got the I'll say courage to move out of the country. I haven't moved yet. I'm in the process. There's so many things that I'm going to cover about it. But so one of the things that Scott Miller and other people cover, and I went through myself, was finding a place to rent through Facebook. Now, it is often recommended, rightfully so, that be careful when you rent on Facebook. If you can avoid it, avoid it. If you don't have the ability to fly down and just see houses locally, I guess you know, it's just what else you have, right? But, or if you don't have a local contact, which I did at the time, you'll have a lot of people renting other people's houses on Facebook, almost as a middleman. The houses are generally for rent, but the person is not holding hostage, but they're holding the contact info hostage, or they're just reposting a stranger's house, hoping you contact them. Then they'll contact the renter, and they'll get a little fee. Maybe you may or may not care about that. It creates a dangerous situation, because some people just want to take a fee from you or whatever, and it doesn't happen often, but there's tons of ads on Facebook like that. So, example, I went through the trouble of sending my contact to go see a couple of houses over there that I found through Facebook, and when they gave me the address, the people in the house were not even aware their house was for rent on Facebook. It was like a family member who was hoping they could convince the person to rent it so they can get some kind of deposit out of it. Other situation was a gentleman was just literally posting other people's for rents and then keeping their deposits to anyone that was dumb enough to just send the money without verifying anything. So again, it is a financially struggling country, but you'll have people who through desperation will try to unfortunately take advantage of outsiders, because it's quite easy to do if you're not paying attention, if you're a trusting person, right? So I would say, don't shy away from Facebook, but you have to scrutinize everything. Something that Scott Miller had suggested. Thankfully, he said that, because it allowed me to keep that in mind while I was reaching out to people about their homes. Out of maybe 70 messages I sent, I got about 10 replies back, not including the ones that ended up being scammed. And then 40 to 50 of those other ads just never replied. Some of them were messages were read. Now, in their defense, my message opened up in Spanish, I speak Spanish, was, "Hi, I'm an American citizen, planning to move down there, and I'm looking to rent a house," and blah, blah, blah. So I'm assuming that people also try to scam locals, so works both ways. So a lot of people probably read that message and were like, yeah, no thanks, right? So bringing it down to two houses. One house, I was able to send my contact personally, met the owner, and she's a woman who owns two houses, but you know, there was different economic times in Nicaragua where she was able to swing two houses, and now she can't. So she's trying to get someone to rent the house so she could be financially alleviated from having to pay for and rent, maintain a second home. So I ended up taking that one. But the second home was a little nicer for a few dollars more. The gentleman was very nice. And then we made a verbal appointment for the next day for me to transfer him money. I was going to transfer it to my contact and then she would take it directly to him. So we made a 10 a.m. appointment and then he never responded. He read the messages and never responded. So I was like, here we go again, whatever. So doesn't matter. So I took the other house. The gentleman did contact me back from the second house like 3 weeks later and said, hey, are you still interested? And I said, why would I be interested? After we talked all the details and negotiated, you left me flat, right? The next day when I was going to send you money, the part that's most important to him. So I never really understood why he didn't follow through with it. But anyways, so the house I ended up getting, you'll see a lot of people on Facebook talk about the how much money it takes to live in Nicaragua. Is very different depending on what your goals are, what you're willing to sacrifice. You'll see people say you could live off of $2,000 a month comfortably. First of all, yes, you could live luxuriously on 2,000 USD a month, right? But to me, that's not that impossible if you're a single guy in the US. So that's not an appealing number to me. I am 41 and my goal is to pseudo-retire at 45. So for the next 4 years, I'm gonna be stacking cash and moving over there, buying everything I need. And then when I'm ready to move. And then once I move, once I have some, a nice, comfortable nest egg of straight cash from working, because I have no real overhead in my personal life. And yes, 4 years is all my goal is to be retired. Obviously, I can't collect my U.S. Social Security for another 25 years, but that's besides the point, take some cash down there, live off of that, and then once I'm there, look into some remote work, some basic entry-level remote work, just to keep a solid, a minimal income stream coming in when I'm down there, to reduce how fast I spend all my savings, right? I'm gonna make a few separate videos on each of the things you should look out for in my personal experience with them. Given some of the warnings people get, I still have had slightly better experiences than others with some of the things they're warned against, right? So that's something to think about. That just because I had a good experience with something doesn't mean that everyone will, because there's a reason some people warn you about certain things. Just keep that in mind. Your miles may vary, and this is my personal experiences. Take that for whatever it's worth. So I went in September, got the keys to the house. It's a 2-bedroom, 1 bath, single home in a residencial, which is basically a HOA with way less rules compared to what you see as a US HOA. But it's the kind of place you want to live in, which I'll get into in another video, because of the security they have. It's a perimeter place, it's complete perimeter around the location. US HOAs tend to be 30, 40 houses, 60 houses. This is more like a town, small town of a few hundred homes in this. Now you can optionally pay a security, and it's pretty cool because it's like Rambo. Like the security guards, they're very serious, somewhat intimidating, and they're just standing in front of the gate, right, the arm gate, with the big old shotgun across their chest, just like, hello, which house do you want to go to, and who are you, basically. And first time I went in, I was I'm the one renting the house. They wanted proof from the landlord. She lives there. They know her. They called her. She said, yeah, it's cool. Then they were a lot nicer to me after they knew I was being honest. But of course, they're very careful, because although Nicaragua is very safe, it's got a lot of petty crimes. Property theft, stuff like that. So they don't because it's already a secured perimeter. They don't want to let anybody in. So. They took pictures of our IDs and wrote it down, and I gave them a list of names I wanted them to let in and out if they come to my home. And we'll see how much they enforce that, but they took down names of people that I did not want in or did want in. That was pretty cool. They'll ride around on bicycles in the neighborhood with a big old shotgun on their back, right? They're usually retired officers, because my landlord told me that my neighborhood is retired government personnel and maybe police force, and then in the last few years they've allowed the houses to be sold and or rented to non-police and government employees. It was great. So she's willing to sell me the house. We'll see how it is to live there for a few years, and then we'll work out a deal for the house. The homes are worth every penny. Now my water bill and light bill is separate, and my internet bill is separate. But boy, let me tell you, man, it's literally nothing. At first, it takes a while to get used to them telling you the prices in Cordobas, which is the local currency, which is they also refer to it as pesos. And Puerto Rican people say pesos too, even though it's dollars, but we say it out of habit. And so they'll be like, "Oh, the water bill was 400 pesos." I'm like, "Excuse me, $400?" And then you find out that the exchange rate is so high that it only ends up being a few dollars. So exchange rate is so at the airport when I went there last in February, which is like a week, 2 weeks ago, it was $39.95, right? So when I first went there in September, it was $36.50. Now, because you have to stand there and do math on the floor, you know, who knows if anyone's doing the exact exchange rate, but at minimum it's $37 to a dollar, you know. If you go to official places, you know, which are more up to date, like, you know, like retail chains, most likely they'll be whatever the exchange rate is that day, that's what you'll get. But some people charge you whatever was the last time they checked. It has nothing to do with them being dishonest. It's just, you know, resources and availability of information. Either way, whether it's 36.50, 37, 38, 39, it's negligible considering that 1-to-1, right? Meaning, let's say a hot dog is $1, and that hot dog, you would say, oh, that means that hot dog costs 37 local pesos. That isn't the case. The dollar for the hot dog doesn't translate to $37 over there. The hot dog locally could be 20 pesos, which technically means you can get two for $1 and some change, right? So it's not, so on top of that, the affordability gets increased even further because the exchange rate, although it's very high, it goes even further because some of the prices of things don't exchange 1-to-1. Some things are just so much cheaper, even in their own currency, that the U.S. currency goes even further than just the straight exchange, right? So I don't know if that makes sense, but let me know if that was a little hard to understand. So I'm going to make a few separate videos. I'm going to try to make this as short as possible because I'm kind of going all over the place. So I'm going to leave it here. Appreciate you guys taking a peek at my video, and hopefully I'm entertaining and capturing enough to have you guys watch another one, you know, or watch this whole thing. And I will be making most of these videos in both languages, and hopefully you enjoy them and you find some use out of it in case you're looking to travel and move out of the country to Central America. A lot of the things that we cover here would apply most likely to most Central American countries, except the nuances of dollars and particular laws. But as far as the experience of moving internationally, it should be very similar. Some of my advantages is that I speak Spanish and my lady is a local Nicaraguan person, right? And thankfully, she's been very helpful, and she just finished 8 years of school and got her doctorate locally. So she's a nice, bright young lady. She has been very supportive and helped me learn and navigate the local area. And she's the sweetest thing ever. Shout out to her, you know. So anyways, thank you. I'll make a video about my house and how it looks like for the money. And, you know, $200 US for a house, can't beat that. So again, thank you for watching. And be on the lookout for my other broken down topics separately that I touched on here. And I'll break them down more in detail. Thanks.